Injury news coming out of the fourth week of the NFL season, and a couple of items important to the Denver Broncos because they play Thursday night. Javonte Williams out for the season with a torn ACL and other damage in his knee. Randy Gregory, ACL is intact as we reported yesterday, but he will have arthroscopic knee surgery. Highly unlikely we're going to see him on Thursday night. The other surprise, too, was that Russell Wilson shows up on the injury report. But before we get to that, here's Nathaniel Hackett talking about the injuries to Javonte Williams and Randy Gregory.
Yeah, I mean, both those guys are obviously very important to our team. Losing Javonte is so unfortunate, you know, a dynamic player in this league. Randy, same thing, you know, having him to have to miss some time right now is hard because he's been a great force on the team. But, hey, so somebody's got to step up. And I think that, you know, with this whole team, I think they're excited, you know, for that opportunity. And we're glad that it comes very soon instead of having to wait longer to be able to get out there and go play.
Yeah, hey, look, next man up. And in a year like this where all the teams are packed together, how you deal with inevitable injuries. First of all, can you avoid them to your key players? But when they happen, next man up's got to come get it done. And they wanted Randy Gregory for a reason. He's been great so far. They're going to have to find a way to make things go defensively without him for however long he's going to miss. They're going to have to make it go offensively without Javonte Williams. They plucked Latavius Murray from the Saints practice squad yesterday to go along with Melvin Gordon. They also have Mike Boone. Both Boone and Murray go back to Minnesota when George Payton was there, so he's got familiarity with those guys. But they got to pivot away from a player a lot of people were excited about getting into the season with Javonte Williams. He's done, and you move on, and that's how it is in the NFL. It happens, and you got to move on, and you got to try to make do with what you have. But the Broncos, you know, I'm surprised. I still don't feel like they should be 2-2. They should be very fortunate that they're 2-2, but they're in the mix. And where they go from here is up to them, Chris.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit of both sides. You could sit here and argue though they could be 3-1 too, you know, with the 2 fumbles on the 1 foot line. It's just been inconsistent, ugly football play. I think to your point, Mike. Right? It's an ugly win against the Texans. It doesn't get uglier against the 49ers. But as we saw last night, the 49ers, their defense, they're going to make a lot of people look ugly for sure. The problem is it looked ugly last week against the Las Vegas Raiders again, and the offense especially. And we know that the passing game and Russell Wilson and all that, hey, they had at least had some moments in this last game, definitely, but kind of like as the game went on, and they looked great in the first half, the third and fourth quarter, I mean, the Broncos had a hard time moving the ball. So you look at them and go, wait, they need to run the ball. And Javonte Williams is clearly their best runner. And then Melvin Gordon, who, yeah, is still got some talent, is not trustworthy. I mean, nobody fumbles more than Melvin Gordon. This has been an issue throughout his career, let alone a big issue this year. I mean, again, you could argue he's got 4 fumbles on the year. 2 of them have cost them 2 games, whether it's the 1-yard fumble against Seattle or the fumble last week that was picked up and returned for a 68-yard touchdown. So that's where it stinks for the Broncos, who are not hitting on all cylinders. They're relying on the run game and the defense to carry them, and now no Randy Gregory, certainly one of the marquee players on their front 7, not there. They're going to probably have to rely on some young guys there. So, yeah, the road is getting tougher for them for sure without those guys.
The surprise on Monday was the disclosure that Russell Wilson is injured. Now,
Yeah.
Initially, Nathaniel Hackett said he was sore, and I saw a bunch of tweets saying that he was limited in practice, and the practice they don't have on Monday. This is how the game goes. For the teams that play Thursday night, they never practice on Monday, but they have to do a practice report. So if they would have practiced, Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited, would have been limited with a shoulder injury. It initially was being described as soreness. The soreness is in his right throwing shoulder. We'll see if he practices today. We'll see what his designation is on Wednesday. Will he be questionable for the home game against the Colts? We'll see. But, you know, this is just part of the bumps and bruises the quarterbacks have to deal with. And we've seen Russell Wilson play through a lot of stuff.
Yes, we have.
Over the years. It wasn't until he had that finger injury that required surgery and the pin and that graphic image of the finger being broken and twisted and held together by that pin. That was the only time he missed time. He will be playing no matter what is going on with that shoulder. The question is, how effective will he be?
Yeah, that is right. And, you know, again, this is Thursday night. It's a pressure-packed game. We got 2 teams here, you know. Yeah, it hasn't looked great. You know, the Broncos sitting there at 2-2. The Colts certainly, I mean, 1-win team that you go, Yeah, you won one game in a game where you had every break in the world and probably still shouldn't have won the football game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Nothing's looked good there. So this is a big one, definitely. But I'm with you, Mike. I expect to see Russell Wilson, and I think, the Broncos offense, it's still a work in progress, and if they do win, it's going to be ugly football here for the time being. And we'll see how, Russell Wilson looks as this continues to go and how the offense kind of formulates around him. But they certainly haven't met expectations to this point as far as what we thought they were going to look like.
You make a great point about pressure, because with the teams packed together this year, and it seems like they're more packed together than ever before.
It does, right?
We get to week 5, and it's like, which way are we going to break? Are we going to go toward the better teams or the worst teams? And with each of these games, there's going to be that pressure, like which track are we on? Are we on the good track or the bad track? Because we know at some point it's going to break. Even if it's week 18, that's where the separation is between the 14 that make the playoffs and the 18 that don't. But I think a lot of these games, as we get to, is this the week we start to see separation? Is this the week we start to see it? And it puts pressure on those teams, and everybody's kind of trying to do the dog paddle here to stay in the conversation. But who knows? It's lasted through 4 weeks. If it lasts through 8 weeks and they're all bunched together,
oh my God,
man! What a scrum it's going to be in the final 2 months of the season.
It will. I would expect, though, Mike, to be more towards like what you're talking about there at your first point. That we're out of September, we're 4 games in. I think you got teams that finally go, okay, wait, this is what we are. We know where we're good. We know what our issues are. We can start to, come up with game plans to hide the issues and accentuate the positive things we do. Teams are in shape now, or at least players are in football shape, to where I think you'll start to see separation, or at least the, cream rise to the top. I'd be surprised. But, I think between that, no preseason like we talk about, limited practices and training camp, and then the ever so new thing in the NFL, which is coaches don't manage games anymore. We're aggressive, and you can't be wrong. The analytics said to be aggressive. That leads the games to be a shit show and all over the place, and that's why we have you can't pick games right now. It's hard to figure out who's going to win. Things are even as they are already. Add in those other influences, and it's hard to figure out who's going to win a game on a weekly basis right now in the NFL.
And, folks, here's why it's happening. And, again, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time is way too early for the analytics mafia to be up my ass. But what happens is all these teams now have an analytics executive who constantly is whispering in the ear of the owner and is setting the agenda for the coach to be aggressive. And the coach, he knows he's going to get second-guessed internally. Whatever happens externally doesn't matter. You're going to get second-guessed internally by the analytics expert who is constantly talking to the owner. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.